everyone, Kelly here, and today I want to share with you my Reading Rush TBR. So Reading Rush is a really big readathon for the reading community on BookTube. If you didn't know, I'll link it down below, all the announcements and all of that stuff. And it's running next week from July 20th to the 26th. And I'm really excited because I think I'm going to get a lot read. I have had people living with us for months now because of COVID, and finally starting actually on the 19th, so like the day before the readathon, will be the first time that we will have nobody in our house other than us four family members. So I think I'm going to have a lot of time to read next week. So I have put a lot of books on my TBR because if you've been with me for very long, you know I'm a mood reader and I need choices. So for every single one of the prompts, basically, I have like 2 choices. And that's just what I need if I want to like kind of have some things to pick from. I can't just have like these 7 books are the only ones I'm going to read. I've picked a lot of smaller books, so I'm hoping to read 7 books that week just because I have a lot of books that I want to read. A lot of these are library books or things that were already on my July TBR. So yeah, my goal is to read 7. I think I have 14 books in this pile, so obviously I'm not going to read them all, but if I have for each prompt 2 choices, I have whatever I want to pick up in that mood, or if I can get an audiobook of something or whatever. So let's get into it. So the first prompt is pick a book based off of the color of your birthstone. And was born in May, so my birthstone is emerald, which is a pretty dark green. Well, it comes in different colors of green, but I usually associate it with a darker green. And I actually have 3 choices for this one because, you know, that's me. And the reason is because I'm actually already started this book, A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kimmerer. And this is obviously very emerald green. And I just don't know if I'll have this done before the reading rush. So I am like a third of the way. If I don't have it done, I will just continue reading this and call it for that prompt. If it's finished, then I have 2 other options. So that's one option. Another is I have Anne of Ingleside by Ellen Montgomery. And my edition has this like floral pattern that is emerald green, and this was supposed to be part of my Anne Along read for last month, so I definitely want to read it this month so I can catch back up, and so that's a definite possibility. I have the audiobook for this, so that's very high contender because audiobooks are always great. And then the last one is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite, and this one I picked because it's a library book, so it needs to return, and it's short, like it's a small little book, and it's only like 220 pages, and they're written like as little vignettes. So I think that this would read really fast, so that's why I picked this one. I picked a lot of shorter books so that I could get through more. The next prompt is a book title that starts with the, and I have 2 options for this, but then I also have a lot of other things on this TBR that start with the, so if I don't get to one of these 2, I will have this prompt covered. And so one of the options is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin, and this was already something I was going to read this month as a buddy read with Murphy Napier's Patreon, and we were supposed to be starting it on the 20th. Some people have already started it, so you know I should catch up, so I'll probably will be reading this anyways. And that's just a contemporary book about I think a bookstore. And then I have a classic, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This is more of a contemporary classic, but this is really short. This looks like it's only 180 pages. So that's why I think this is a good choice for a readathon. And then the next prompt is, instead of doing their normal book to movie adaptation, they did it where you pick a book that you've already watched the movie, but you haven't read the book. And I looked at all of the books that I own, and I only had 1 book that fits this prompt. I mean, there might be others that I don't know are movies, but in terms of one I definitely know, I have The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And I have obviously seen the Wizard of Oz movie many times in my childhood, and I've also like seen Wicked and read Wicked and all that stuff, but I have never read the source material going back to the classic book, and I've had this one for a while. I also thought this might have fit in with the Emerald one, because usually Wizard of Oz has the Emerald City on the cover, but this one does not have the Emerald City, or at least, I mean, it does, but it's not green. So it didn't work for that prompt, but it would work for the, and this one's also fairly short. You know, I think the audiobook is only 4 hours, and I do have the audiobook as well, but I love these versions because they have pictures and all that, so I might just read along while listening to the audiobook because that would be fun. And so that's the only option I have for that one. And then the next one is read from a genre that you've wanted to read more from. And for this one, I picked nonfiction. I don't know if that counts as technically a full-on genre, but I just always want to read more nonfiction and just haven't been doing it lately. So I have a couple choices for this book. One from the library. I have March Book 1, which is a nonfiction graphic. So is it still called a graphic novel if it's nonfiction? You know what I mean. It's graphics. So this one would read really fast, which is good for the readathon. And I have all 3 volumes. So if I really got into it, I could read all 3 for the readathon. And this is nonfiction about the civil rights movement. And then the other option is one I've been wanting to read for a long time, which is Love and Logic, Magic for Early Childhood. And this is just a nonfiction parenting book, but it's very short. I think it's 163 pages. So I thought that would be a good choice. And I really need to be reading this because I have a toddler and a preschooler. And so I really need to like read up on some more like discipline and loving discipline and stuff like that. So that's something that is an option. And then the other kind of more specific prompt is read a book from a continent that you don't live in. I live in North America. So I have 2 options for this. One is another library book that I want to return soon, which is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. This is one of her Hercule Poirot books. And I actually have the audiobook of this, and I love listening to the audiobooks narrated by Hugh Fraser. So this is a high contender because, like I said, audiobooks are always good during the readathon. But I also meant to read some Shakespeare plays this month for the readathon, All the World's a Page. So I have Macbeth as the other option. I believe Macbeth is supposed to take place in Scotland. Is that right? Isn't he a Scottish king? So that's another option. And reading a play is really fast to read as well. So I will hopefully read one of those. And then the other 2 prompts are things that you don't have to get very specific. So one is to pick up the first book you touch, and you can interpret this in many ways. And so what I did was I took 5 of my library books that are due back this month, and I set them out and touched it. I will enter that clip once I show you the books. And the reason I'm going to show them to you is because I'm also going to pick one of these to be the book I read outside. And I sit outside with my kids all the time while they play, so it'll be easy. All of these were shorter books as well, and that's why I picked them as something that I can sit outside with. And I have audiobooks for at least 2 of the 5 books in this deck. And so 2 of these will get read. One I'll show you the clip of in a little bit, and one of these I will just pick randomly to read outside. So the first one is Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which is nonfiction. So this could also fit that prompt that I talked about earlier if I feel called, and I have the audiobook for this. And then I have The One and Only Bob by Catherine Applegate, which is middle grade, and it's also written in verse, so that will read very quickly. And then I have Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Azevedo, which is also written in verse, and I just got the audiobook from the library, and the audiobook's only like 5 hours long, so that's another really good option. And then I have King and the Dragonflies by Case and Callender. This is also middle grade, and it's a really short middle grade novel, so that's one option. And then Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This would be a reread for me, and this one is really short. And the funny thing is that I read this for the first time during this readathon, the Reading Rush, when it was called Booktubeathon 3 years ago or whatever. So it'd be kind of interesting to read it again during this same readathon. So those are the 4. I'll insert the clip right now of which one I chose for the first book I touch. So what I'm going to do is shuffle these around a little bit with my eyes closed, and then I will just point. So I know you can't see me doing this, but I'm going to close my eyes now. So sorry if the camera does not stay very still on this. Okay, so I don't know where the books are, so I'm just going to touch All right, so that is the chosen book. So as you saw, I chose Clap When You Land, which is great because this one will go by really fast, and I've heard awesome reviews of the people that have read this so far. So that means that one of these 4 books will be read outside. So you'll just have to wait to see my vlog or whatever to find out which one I choose. And that's it for me. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them, or let me know what you're looking forward to reading next week for the Reading Rush. See you next time. Bye.